everybody to tonight's Green Christian Workshop. I'll introduce Stephanie and Alex in a moment, but first of all, I'm just going to ask Judith Rassenberger to open the workshop with a prayer. So over to you, Judith.
Well, this is a prayer some people may have heard earlier in the week, but it's one that I like and somebody else used it and I thought I would reuse it too. It comes from the Iona community. A green heart. Into a dark world, a snowdrop comes, a benison of hope and peace, carrying within it a green heart, symbol of God's renewing love. Come to inhabit our darkness, O Christ, for dark and light are alike to you. May nature's white candles of hope remind us of your birth and light our journey through Lent and beyond. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much indeed, Judith. And well, Stephanie and Alex are going to be talking about their journey from an ordinary 1950s house to a passive house. I'm really delighted that they can be with us to do this evening. Stephanie, a number of you older, not in the sense of old in age, but longer term members of Green Christian will remember Stephanie from when she edited the Green Christian magazine some years back. And Alex is a retired vicar, and I'm going to hand over to them now, and they're going to take us through their journey with its ups and downs and its tribulations and its successes. Over to you, Stephanie and Alex.
Hello, I assume you can hear us now. So I am Stephanie and this is Alex.
Alex,
hello.
yeah.
And we a few years ago bought a house and decided to do a transformation to it. So we're going to share a little bit some of our story with you. I don't think we've got time to go into all the tribulations. It wasn't quite Grand Design's territory, but it almost was.
Maybe.
But anyway, we will give this talk in 3 parts. We're going to start with what we did. We will continue with what it achieved as a living house, a lived experience, the house to live in. And the third section will be a little bit dependent on how much time we have. And Barbara, I will leave that up to you. But we can also handle it in the questions. And that question is, what can you do? What can I do in my house to do some transformation as well? So for part 1, we are going to alternate speakers. And for the beginning of part 1, I will hand over to Alex.
So this is where we started, and I think you've possibly already seen this picture. I don't know about Grand Designs, but we're certainly very proud, and I certainly think there's got an element of Grand Designs about it. We started with this 1950s red brick house, and this is what we ended up with. But if I go back to this red brick house, it needed rewiring. It had a defunct central heating system. We were going to always build an extension. We were keen to think about the way in which we were using energy. I was thinking about, conservatories on the front to conserve heat. But cut a long story short, it led us to the thinking of Passivhaus and an architect that offered that.
So I will explain a little bit what a Passivhaus is. It is a house which is designed to be heated passively by solar gain, and also from day-to-day living, such as using your hob and your oven, and even body heat, because every bit of heat that's added to the house is retained by the house. So the house has got a Passivhaus is built on 3 principles. The first is insulation. The second is airtightness, and the third is controlled ventilation. So insulation from materials added to walls and floors and ceilings. Airtightness comes from a membrane that wraps the whole house. And controlled ventilation comes from something called mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. So this is a circulation of air through pipes within the house, and heat recovery, because the heat from the house preheats the air coming into the house from outside. So passive house, there's a lot to say about it, but I will try and be as brief as possible. There are two standards. There is full passive house standards for new builds, and something called Bienfait, which is for retrofits, and that is our case. We are a retrofit, and we have reached the Bienfait standard. The next thing to say is that consultants use, so we did have an architect with a passive house consultant arm, and they use a software package called PHPP to balance out the different aspects of the build so that you achieve the correct metrics. There's a lot to say about how it's measured, but we won't go into that sort of detail. But if you want to ask us about that afterwards, you're very welcome. We've given us quite a lot of information that we can share with us. But to actually get to dig into the build itself, so those three elements, insulation, airtightness, and MVHR, you're going to now see how they were put together in our house, and Alex is going to take that bit over.
So it's first thing to say, it's not for the faint-hearted. We didn't imagine this to begin with, but the house was clearly uninhabitable. It was uninhabitable nearly for about a year. The whole business about doing a passive house retrofit or even a build, finding builders that had the interest and the capacity to get to grips with this is a challenge in itself. But first of all, you can see here that very quickly early on, this was just reconfiguring the house as it was without even building the extension. And I'll just move on from, this is a little video. I'm just going to, you can see here, this is, we were knocking out whole floors. Getting the right builder is a key task. And this is another photo of him here on the right. We interviewed maybe 4 builders, and this individual was the person who immediately he entered into the house had curiosity. He was clearly ambitious. He was keen to learn, and those are absolutely crucial when you're undertaking a novel, when you're pushing the boundaries of what people understand or what is conventional.
So we did quite a lot of normal repair work, including what did we do? We did some relaying of drains. We had to completely rewire the house. Some of those shiny tubes that you see are part of the MVHR system, but you can see a lot of the wiring, all the plumbing going in. All of that had to be done anyway. The extension we would have done anyway. So this is some of what you can see being built here. We ended up having to re-roof the house. Here's a few pictures. These are the trusses arriving. We went through some cold times, and here's a little dog sitting in front of the fan heater, testifying to this. But these were just part of the conventional part of the build. In addition to this, we did the passive house part, and I'll hand over back to Alex for that.
So, I mean, we'll just go through this list in terms of photos. One of the decisions we agonized over, and I can't believe that we took so long to think and make that decision, was whether or not we were going to insulate the ground floor. It was a big decision because it meant gunning up and digging out the existing floor. And then these guys having the unenviable task of digging out the muck, the dirt. As you can see, that was an extensive job. Now, putting insulation here wasn't the only task underfloor. In a passive house, in the retrofits, what they also try and do is insulate the footings themselves. So it's like our architect saying, it's like this, the building getting socks. Conventionally, if a normal passive house is being built, you'd put insulation underneath the foundations themselves, if possible. But here that was impossible, of course. We're lining insulation. You can just about see the green guard insulation going externally. Here is the Celotex encapsulated in a impermeable membrane going down on the floor. This is 100 millimeter, part of the 200 millimeter overall that went into the ground floor. Just to give you an idea of the amount of insulation that we were dealing with, this is stored upstairs. And again here, we've got the insulation going to the external footings of the building. And here a little bit more. We also we replaced the windows. Here's the task in itself was just getting the windows off the lorry. But anyway, that all happened a heart-stopping moment. But anyway, the replacement of windows and another key. Sorry, that I should say this is triple glaze. And then another key aspect to Passivhaus is the airtightness. And the whole house got enveloped in this polyester material that would control the airtightness of the house. And all the laps and all the joints were taped with this unbelievably sticky and strong lasting tape. This included by getting this polyester material over the top of the house, underneath the roof trusses. And when it is completed, this all has to be air tested. So you blow air into the house. You also suck air out of the house to test that. You can see here but here we've got an air test in progress, air being pumped into the house. And we're basically looking for leaks and testing how long it takes for the pressure to drop. Inevitably, we failed the air test. I think we had about 3 air tests before we eventually passed. And here is some slave labor. Here, this is our son doing some. We're covering up the areas where we think we're getting leakage, and this is some wall brackets that were essential, in fact, for the framework for holding up the external wall insulation. Here's another photo. So move on from taping up those areas where there is leakage into showing this external wall insulation. So all around this 1930s brick, 1950s house, and also the new extension, we had this framework constructed to hold the insulation. Here the insulation is coming, it's about 190 millimeters of fiberglass insulation. Another aspect is the air control. Obviously, we're in this airtight box, this polyester box, plastic bag in effect. We have to pull air in and push air out. And it's done with these pipes that you see here. Here are more of them. And here is the equipment, bottom right, the fan that is on 24 hours a day that does this work, this incredible work, very, very silently. It is a large bit of equipment. Additionally to the Passivhaus elements, we had additional technologies. We had solar thermal come into the house, added to the house. We had a rainwater harvesting tank, which we're very proud of, that provides the water for flushing our toilets. And it can also provide the water for our washing machine. We also have, unusually for a Passivhaus, a wood-burning stove. You can see the stove, which is about to be installed on the left. But significantly and importantly, we've got an external air feed that goes directly into the stove. And additionally, you'll see this photo again, but I got this again. You can see here the roof. It shows the PV, the solar PV, 18 panels a 6 kilowatt array in addition to the solar thermal. Right. So we got Passivhaus certification. Do you speak to that, or is
Yes, you can do. Yes. Well, Alex did most of this part of the work as well. Certification is important because we are living in a very unconventional sort of house, and I will explain a little bit more about that later. But it involves putting together a vast folder of evidence and photos, which includes, which looks a little bit like this to prove that we used the right materials, that they were correctly installed, that they came from the right place, that they were delivered definitely to this address. So you had to keep things like delivery notes and submit those. It took a very long time to put all of this together. Alex worked like a Trojan at
I
this.
think there were 300 photos, and I think 200 pages or something like this. It was enormous.
Phenomenal.
And it's high, and it's also to illustrate that certain techniques. So, for instance, if you look on the left here, you can see the insulation going into the eaves there. A very, very important, crucial part where you need the insulation, but it's totally invisible now. So the only proof that we've got that insulation is through our photo evidence.
So this photo again, our architects included us on their website, which is very nice. And they sent their photographer on a dull day when it never stopped raining, but somehow he got a drone up in the air, got this wonderful, wonderful photographs. So we are on their website. We are also registered with the Passivhaus Trust. So this is a little plaque that eventually we received, which we're allowed to put on our wall. And here, if you look on the Passivhaus Trust website, you will see that the yellow dots are the retrofits, and we are the only one in Kent at the moment. So it is an achievement, and we are very proud of it. But we are now going to talk about part 2, the lived experience. What's it like living in a passive house? To start with, the heating is very unconventional. We don't have a boiler. We don't have radiators. We don't have underfloor heating or anything like that. So there is no conventional heating system or boiler. And that's why it's so important to get the certification. If we were to sell this house, it would be very, very difficult to explain to people why we don't have heating. And the answer is simply that we need very little of it. We do have a wood burner, which is not normally encouraged within the passive house system, but we had a chimney in the middle of the house, which would have been difficult to demolish. And we also own some woodland, so we've got access to free wood. We have a very small heater attached to the MVHR. This is the ventilation system for emergencies. It's 1.8 kilowatts. So we can heat a whole house if we have to with this very, very small heater. We have heated towel rails. We had to declare all of this as part of the certification. How will we space heat the house? Heated towel rails was one of the answers. We barely use them. Everything we do in the house adds to the heat. So every time we use the oven, every time we cook something, when you turn on the iron, even body heat, everything that you do is retained within the house and contributes to the warmth. And the house itself keeps a steady 19 to 20 degrees. We use the wood burner on winter evenings from about late November to about this time. In fact, it's not on. It's not been on.
We've not been using it.
For the last week, we've not needed it. And so we're quite warm enough. And the benefits, it's comfortable. It's an even temperature throughout. There are no cold spots. There is no bracing yourself as you pass the front door, as we used to do in our old house. There's no temperature drop overnight, or very little. So on, let me just pass for the next piece of paper. Let's show you a nice photo of some ice. So this is on the outside of our triple glazed windows. You can see on a nice frosty morning, it's the temperatures barely drop below 18 or 19 overnight, and in the morning it's frosty like this. Other benefits are that we have, of course, have very low electricity bills. No, let's leave it on that for the moment.
Okay, right.
We have very low electricity bills. there's very little stuffiness. So when we keep our triple glazed window open, the ventilation system is keeping the house fresh. So there is constant air movement, but very, very slow. It's like a trickle, so you don't feel it. But the advantage is that your clothes dry much faster. So when you hang up a wash of clothes, by the next morning it's usually dry. So it's just an odd little quirk of living here. Triple glazing is, of course, very quiet. It creates a quiet environment to live in. And of course, there are obvious environmental benefits. We have very low emissions now that the house is built. This little picture we have with this ice shape, it's almost shaped like a Christmas tree. And one year we used it for our Christmas card to send to friends. Now, a few cautions, and I will hand over to Alex for those.
Yeah, cautions. Whenever you're doing a build that involves pushing the sort of technological bounds of the envelope of what's conventionally understood, you need to be working very closely with a builder. And we had a very close working relationship. We were on site most days. They welcomed us. They were, the builder was as curious as we were. He was as keen to learn as we were. So we worked really, really closely as a team, and I look back upon it with great affection. We were very involved, as you could see. The whole family was involved with checking on the airtightness. And this did hours of time looking at every little, scanning for any little hole in that polyester layer. You need to be aware with a house like this, with this airtightness layer, but with also the MVHR, that making changes to the house is going to be trickier. So it doesn't rule out the possibility of making an additional extension or, say, doing a loft conversion, but it just adds to the complication. Sorting out the airtightness and getting the ventilation sorted. I've already referred to the fact that the MVHR is a large bit of kit, akin to a large oil-fired boiler, I think, in my experience. Anyway, it's just as it is. It takes space. Some people site them up in the loft, but our architect was very keen to have it within the warm envelope of the house. Overheating, I'm just going to pass over to Stephanie about that issue.
My bugbear. With climate change, I think the PHPP package, which is this software package that helps you to balance out the way in which the house is built, it tends to be oriented to keeping a house warm in winter, which is of course wonderful. But what it doesn't do so well is think about overheating in summer. And with our hotter summers, we have found that the house gets hot. So we have retrofitted some blinds, some external blinds, to stop the sun hitting the glass, which is the point at which the house heats up. So we could have done with just a little bit more hand-holding with that at the start. We could have done with planning that in instead of having to retrofit, which made it more complicated.
So, Barbara, and to come to Barbara's point, the cost, how long does it take back? How many years does it take to pay back the investment of this? It's obviously a higher investment, having done this work. And I find it incredibly difficult to sift out. I've estimated that the additional works to get us Passivhaus certified cost us maybe around 70,000. And then, of course, people say, well, how long does that take to pay back? I think when we started this, the answer is it would have been a lifetime, actually, to be honest. We did it out of principle. And to go to Barbara's point earlier, most people don't sit there saying, well, I wonder how long it's going to take to pay off my new kitchen, or dare I ask, how long is it going to pay off your new car? People often make these life choices to invest. And we made a life choice to invest in our house. Having said that, as soon as we started the build, of course, energy prices went through the roof due to the Ukraine war. And I think we're down to, between 15 and 20 years to pay back our investment. The other thing to say is that environmental technologies, you do need to be prepared to learn how to get the most out of these technologies, when to have the water heated through electricity, when you rely on the solar thermal. Getting the balance right is crucial.
I think we'll address part 3, what you can do, maybe as part of the questions. But I'm going to conclude. We can go back to the previous slide. But to conclude, first, I would say I don't recommend the experience of building during a pandemic. Some of our decisions were governed by availability of materials, or sometimes manpower. Sometimes the whole team would go off because one person tested positive for COVID. It was a very complicated time that we were living through. We do absolutely recommend the experience of living here. I think the comfort factor, if you start looking at paybacks, the comfort factor of living in a house like this gets overlooked. The concept of heating a house that doesn't retain its temperature now seems really strange to us. If you want to try it out, we know somebody who runs a B&B in Wendover, and it's a Passivhaus, and we have stayed there ourselves. It's very nice. So ask us if you'd like to know more about that. And finally, talk to us if you or anybody you know is considering doing anything like this. And I'll go back to the previous slide and we can talk through these questions, as in our breakout rooms or as part of the discussion. But anyway, that's it from us. That's the end of our talk.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephanie and Alex. That was super. Could you just stop share for the moment?
Yeah.
Lovely. That's it. And we see everybody. And for anybody who hasn't come to our Green Christian workshops, we do have about 10 minutes now in small breakout groups, just like having a buzz after a talk. And you talk about what you've heard from Stephanie and Alex, come back with some questions for them. But a particular question we're going to be asking you to look at is, what measures have you taken to insulate your home and cut emissions? And what else would you consider doing? Welcome back. So now's a chance to ask any questions you have of Stephanie and Alex. Put either your virtual hand up or wave your hand. Catherine.
Hi, that was so interesting. Thank you, Stephanie and Alex. Really helpful. Sorry if I missed this, but did you say how long it took you? I know you've talked about starting in the pandemic and then the invasion of Ukraine. So I've got an idea. It was a couple of years at least. Is that right?
It wasn't quite that long. I think we started at the end of 2020 and we moved in September 2021. The house wasn't quite finished, but it was livable.
Well, just about livable,
It was livable.
Well, I'm glad you say that now.
And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the external blinds. Are they as robust as what I'd call shutters?
They are blinds that come down. They roll up and they come down. So they're not shutters.
No,
there wouldn't be space. One of the advantages of the type of window that we have is that it opens inwards. And so we could have blinds on the outside. And that's very common on the continent. So these are windows that are actually made in Europe. And they're unusual. English windows tend to open outwards, so they make it Hello. Sorry, there's
a bit of interference. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
So a lot of English windows open inwards, but because outwards, but because also open inwards, it was easier to to retrofit the blinds. But what we would have liked to do would be to, because they're electric and they come down, they're controlled from inside. We would have liked to be able to wire them in, but because of all the airtightness, that was quite complicated. So what we have got are little solar panels on the outside of each one, which feed a battery, and they're battery operated essentially.
Marvelous, thank you.
I was going to try and get you a photo to show you, but anyway, we'll maybe come to another question first.
Okay, well, Tony had his hand up earlier. You do need to put your virtual hand up, if you would, because we've got, so that we can see Alex and Stephanie who's asking the questions. But Tony, come on in.
What do you use the electricity generated by the solar panels for? Is that for your ventilation system?
Everything.
It's just our general electricity needs. So our house uses 4,000 kilowatts a year, but the MVHR is 40 watts if you're interested. But we have electrically heated water, so our hot water is heated both by the solar thermal on the roof and the electricity that gets generated from the solar panels. And if that's not enough, it gets topped up on the cheap rate electricity at night.
Oh, right.
But most of the electricity gets exported, and we get a tariff for that.
Judith.
This is not to be sort of pessimistic, but we think about ecology and the environment. To what extent do you think, because you use so many materials, particularly materials which are oil-based, that's all the insulation, all the plastic on the outside.
Correct.
What is the kind of ecological footprint of achieving the 18 to 20 degrees inside your house, as opposed to perhaps had this house as it was and done less?
Quite a lot of concrete as well. So, there are people who have managed to do this in a more environmental manner than we have. But we had to manage with what we could get at the time during a pandemic, and our choices were limited. For example, there's a plaster factory that stopped functioning, or was functioning at 20%. So you couldn't get materials. We couldn't get the insulation we want, so we've got a mixture of insulation, but some of it is from sheep actually. We haven't calculated that particularly.
Well, no, they did. The architect did. No, the architect did do a carbon audit.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. No, and it was very much in our thinking. So, for instance, one of the decisions that we made was how we were going to build the extension, and one of the obvious ways in which you do that is through building concrete walls, and we found a very good contractor who would build that. But that was going to, that would have added quite a heavy embedded carbon cost. With the amount of concrete we would have been using, so we didn't opt for that. We took a middle road. The architect did suggest we could have used a timber frame for the extension. And as Stephanie said, we used wool insulation in the loft.
We had a size constraint, so we added insulation to the outside of the house, but both our neighbours on both sides have built right up to the boundary, and there's one where there's very little space. And building with timber, we built with block work, what's known as block work, and that has a certain insulation value. Had we used timber, it would have been a lesser value, and the width of insulation that we would have needed would have been too great for the constraint that we had next to our neighbour. So that was another compromise, that not to use a timber build for the extension. So all of those things were under discussion.
But it is a real question. It's a real question, and the architect did take it into account, did do a carbon audit for us.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Thanks very much. Marissa.
Yeah, I mean, my current house, I've done up quite a lot. It's a EPC. It's got solar, battery, insulation. I've got a water tank for collecting water for the swimming pool. I've done quite a lot to it. And I'm now trying to sell it, and I want to move to a stone house in France up in the mountains.
Wow.
That is in a conservation village, and it's stone built. It's got to be stone because of climate change down in the Pyrenees. You know, there's no point buying a house that's built of anything else these days. So it's stone with a slate roof, and I'm wondering if there are any like websites or information as to how I can proceed with this, because I suspect they won't let me do anything that I might want to do to it.
Are you allowed to do things to the inside?
Possibly. I mean, I may be able to, after I've lived there for a year, get some grants for some roof insulation, things like that. And I will see if they'll let me put any solar on the terrace or an air source heat pump.
Yeah, so Marissa, the things, the basic key things that you can be doing and attending to is looking for drafts. But in your situation, and we discussed this in our breakout room, is that if you've got a stone house, you know, you are going to be always dealing with moisture issues. Would be considering an air-to-air air source heat pump, which effectively is an air conditioning unit. And if you're dealing with the south of France, you know, you providing coolness in summer and heat in winter is something you could be considering.
An air to air.
Yes, effectively, an air conditioning unit that feeds directly into the house.
Oh.
That an air conditioning unit that provides heat as well as
so it's like
cooling.
It's like an air source heat pump, but instead of heating hot water that goes around the house into radiators, it provides hot air, and it also helps deal with moisture. And in summer, you can also reverse it and use it as air conditioning. So it might be possible to think about something like that.
Thank you. I haven't heard of that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Marissa. And John Logan. Oh, you need to unmute yourself, John.
Yeah. You mentioned a certain length of time for the build. How long were you in preparation? I mean, you must have had this idea for 15 years or
No.
But I mean, some of us are just not at all technical. And the thought of this is just a nightmare.
You can, obviously, depending on your budget, you can hire somebody. I mean, our architects, although obviously we were in the depths of the pandemic at this point, I think they probably couldn't have done it at this time, but you could hire them to be your project manager. But ideally, you want someone who's a bit closer by. Our guys are in Milton Keynes, so it's a bit far from where we're in Kent. So you can hire somebody to do that.
Yes, I think if you don't have the technical confidence, you would need to get somebody on board who's sympathetic. So although I was a Church of England vicar for some 27 years, my previous life, I was a structural engineer. So
help.
He was thinking.
And
so there was a lot of pent up ambition, as you quite rightly say, you know, having lived in church properties for all those years and being told you couldn't do anything, you know, we were poured in our enthusiasm.
And that the ideas have been maturing in our minds, but we hadn't actually thought of Passivhaus. especially as we always thought Passive House was something that you could only build from scratch. We didn't think of it as a possibility for a retrofit. I mean, then when the pandemic struck, Alex had already announced his resignation. And then when the pandemic started, he reversed his resignation, and that's why we didn't move into the house straight away. So this had a very important knock-on effect, that we could actually do a much more profound retrofit to the house than we'd originally envisaged.
Yeah, thank you.
Now I know, Alex, why you were so, so clever at all this, because you took a very keen interest in all the technical side of things, I know. And now I understand you've got all that background of structural engineering.
Oh, so Barbara, you didn't know?
Well, just an Anglican vicar. You've got other skills.
A lot of vicars do have
Very
that
useful.
skill, actually. It's just that was a very useful one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your question, John. That was good. David, do you want to come in?
Sorry, it's when you're actually doing the tech, it's quite hard to ask a question yourself. I live in a terrace house. I've got neighbours on either side. Have you heard of people doing anything similar with terrace houses?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
And in fact, you don't need to insulate your sides because you've got neighbours there.
It's actually easier.
Mm.
Oh, all right. Okay. I just imagine.
Obviously,
I mean, the problem is insulating externally is tricky. So I think you can also insulate internally, but that means losing some living space.
Yeah.
So that's probably what
you do compromise, have compromise there, but it is certainly doable.
people do it. Yeah, there are stories.
And then, of course, you don't have to go all the way with the passive house principle. You can be taking huge strides in checking how much heat you're losing through wasted wasted through ventilation, the drafts. That's really what I'm trying to say. Through your letterbox, through your front door, your loft hatch. Those are the three big things that people need to check: the front door, the letterbox, and the loft hatch. But getting the insulation standard better in the loft doesn't take a huge amount of money. Yeah.
Nobody else has their hand up. So the next question was, why did you do it this way and not just pull the house down and rebuild?
Well,
and how much of the house is now is the original?
Well, I can say that about half to two-thirds. The old house is still there inside the new one, if you know what I mean. I mean, there are environmental reasons for not pulling the house down, and this goes back to
Judith's question
about embedded energy. There was already a brick house, so environmentally it made no sense to take it down. Also, I mean, by the time we'd worked all of this out and got planning permission, we realised we didn't have planning permission to take the house down. We had planning permission to do what we have finally done. There are swings and roundabouts with both ideas. Rebuilding, you get advantages with VAT because you're building new. But if actually we were quite lucky that we paid a lower percentage of VAT than we should have done, because there's an odd little rule, which is that if you are bringing back into use a house that's been empty for 2 years, you get a VAT rebate on the renovation works, which is what we did. It's complicated, but we managed to do that.
Yeah, we managed, and it was partly through the pandemic that we got that because we delayed our move.
That's it.
And so the house was emptier for a longer time. But it was never seriously on our radar to pull the house down. We never started with that plan.
But I can see why people would wonder that.
Yeah, no, I was curious, but no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I also feel like asking, what do the neighbours think? Do they think you're great, or do they think you're the loonies who live in the funny weird?
We had lots of people staring and looking.
Yeah. We live in a very suburban place where neighbours are not at all interested in each other and never go into each other's houses. We have had parties and invited people and done stuff, but it's been uphill trying to create any sorts of sense of community out of a place where people are really only interested in their own little lives. It's very, very difficult here. I want to add, if no one has a question,
we do have small, but yeah, carry on there, Stephanie.
I just want to add that even if you're renting your house, you have absolutely no possibility of doing anything. You can also use your power to lobby for all new builds to be built to this standard. Can you imagine a world where people virtually have no heating bills? It's almost scandalous that so much new build is going up as it is. Excuse our clock, it's going to bong 8 times. So much new build is going up around us, and none of it is to this sort of standard. We did have a local councillor, a Labour councillor, a very nice lady, come round, and she was very interested because she says that if you could only build social housing to this standard, it would be fantastic. So lobby. That's
yes.
my other.
And it shouldn't add a huge amount to the overall cost. Our architect reckons at the outside maybe it's an extra 10% to the build cost.
Right, Liz, come on in.
Right, thank you very much, Stephanie and Alex. It's been really helpful. As I explained in the breakout room, I'm actually looking to downsize from the family home of nearly 30 years now, and it's only me, but with a view to doing some retrofitting. Having listened to your experience, I'm thinking, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about Passivhaus because it's not a lot of work. Any hints or tips about what I should be looking out for?
You do need to be careful when you insulate, not to trap moisture. So I would recommend talking to a professional. There are some people who give free advice. There is, if you're anywhere near Kent, there's a guy who goes to the Repair Cafe at Canterbury and gives free advice on exactly this. So it's worth, getting really good advice on how to insulate without causing damp problems later on.
And it depends really what you're thinking your budget is. I mean, if you're doing a serious retrofit where you're thinking about your energy systems, if you're thinking about changing windows and things, talk to a professional, talk to a surveyor, talk to somebody who understands where potential cold spots can be coming in a house.
You can also get someone with a heat camera to take photographs of your house, and then you can actually see visually where the heat loss is as well.
But we've already said there are very, very quick wins that you can make by controlling drafts, especially from your front door, your letterbox, and the loft hatch. Those are easy things to do.
No, thank you. I will check out the Repair Cafe in Canterbury.
Oh, are you anywhere near?
I'm actually looking at Canterbury as a possibility to move to.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you'd be welcome to come and have a look at what we've done.
Maybe I'll take you up on it. Thank you.
Yes.
No, or even give you advice.
Well, absolutely welcome if you're in this area. Yes.
Thank you.
Right. I know you've put in a water storage.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. A photograph of that. Could you tell us a little bit more what you're using the water from that for, and a little bit about that?
Okay. So we currently use it to flush our toilets, because most people use drinking grade water to flush their toilets, and it seems a bit of a shame really when there's all this stuff falling down all winter. We also have it connected to our washing machine, but we haven't yet used it. But if we ever find ourselves in the same situation as Tunbridge Wells, where they had their water cut off for days on end, we would A, plumb in our washing machine, and B, probably filter some of our water and maybe use it for cooking or something, So in the winter, we have even our tank, which is huge, overflows. And in summer, we use it to water the garden and things like that.
Yeah, it's really fantastic, and again, in terms of new build, very, very easy to include an external tank like that when you're setting out from scratch.
It looked huge in the picture, but presumably it's got a couple of
Yes,
feet of soil over above it, has it?
I know. Yes, and
It's there. It's one which is designed for high water tables, because we are on the water table is really not very far from where we live. It's not very deep, and so it's a special flat one. Alex is going to try and show a photo of it.
No, is that anyway? I think. Oops.
Oh dear.
No.
You're into your slides.
I've lost it now. I did have the picture there. Oh, there we are.
And you got
There
it.
it is.
Can you see it? Yeah. Good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's what it looks like. It looks like a giant mattress.
Yes, it does. Yeah, so you could bounce up and down on it.
Yes, except you can't.
Ah, okay. Well, thank you so much. I think we've probably come to the end of the questions there, and I'm just going to take spotlight off me. There we go. Right. And I'd just like to thank Stephanie and Alex. And thank you for all your questions, but it's absolutely fascinating. We will now finish completely with a prayer from Catherine. So, Catherine, would you like to just pull us together and finish with a prayer? Thank you.
Creator God, we thank you for all we've learned of Stephanie and Alex's journey with retrofitting to live carefully for creation. We pray for the wisdom to continue our own journeys, to make our homes not only havens for ourselves, but also sanctuaries of care for the environment through insulation, smart ventilation, using natural sustainable materials, draft proofing, or lobbying for equity in insulation. And a Lenten blessing for the times in which we live. On the day the Spirit leads you into the wilderness, may you know it was a friend that led you there, and that friend hasn't left your side for a minute. On the day you would turn those stones into bread if you could, or raise the dead, open blind eyes, wake up the world, end the war, and you attempted to despair, may those stones become a seat, a pillow, an altar. On the day you are visited by your powerlessness, limitations, or longings, may you be ministered to by angels. Amen.